thanks for being here. My guest today, I'm going to do the intro. I'll do the intro, but I'll let you talk about yourself too, is psychologist, professor, and media commentator Oren Amitay, Dr. Oren Amitay. And you are my therapist, although we have not met since 2022. So it has been a while since we've met. But now I'm the one who gets to ask the sex questions. So this is going to be good. So is there anything else that you want people to know about you up front?
The only thing is, technically speaking, I'm an instructor, not a professor. It's a protected title, so I don't want people.
No. Yeah. That's fair. I figure anybody who teaches at a university, but it's true. You when I had a student teacher, like after the lecture, they weren't the prof.
Right. Yeah. So I'm just every term I'm a contractor, sessional lecturer. So not directly affiliated with university.
Okay.
So free agent.
Okay, that sounds good. So I thought we would get started by talking about you're back on Twitter.
Yes.
You were banned, and now you're unbanned.
Yes.
Did you initiate that? Well, maybe talk about why you got banned from Twitter to begin with.
Sure. So I dared to use proper grammar on Twitter. That's what got me banned, literally, right? So there was somebody. I was back in the heyday. I was really getting involved in a lot of, let's say, contentious issues.
Yeah.
And I came at it from a professional standpoint, from a compassionate standpoint. It had to do with, let's say one of the main issues was trans or gender related issues, and that's one of my areas of a specialty, let's say, and. So I know I rubbed a lot of people the wrong way because, God forbid, I talked about facts, science, evidence, reality. So,
and what year was that?
Well, I got banned 2019.
2019. So yeah, back
a
then
4-year ban.
we would have been in the thick of it,
Yes.
cancel culture wise.
Exactly. Yeah. And so there was one person who would always antagonize lots of people, and that person, it wasn't even a tweet to them. So they were engaged in some other conversation with somebody else, and somehow I was tagged in. And I just basically said, if you're looking for an honest discussion with this person, I said something about I said give up because it's good faith discussions are anathema to him/her, something along those lines.
Sure.
Okay?
Yes.
Because I don't know if this person's, I don't know how they identify, and I'm not going to waste my time clicking on their, on their egg or whatever icon to see.
No, I mean, even doing the he/her is an extra effort.
Well,
right.
Well,
if you were to go off what their name and face is,
but they didn't have any of that. It's like a cartoon or whatever, like it's an avatar. I have no idea.
Okay.
Right? So I just said him/her. Okay. I could have used them, but I'm anal about language, so I used him/her, and that's supposed to be fine. If you don't know someone's sex or preferred gender, him/her is fine, and I was banned for that. That was my ban.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's not even like the Megan Murphy, like straight up men aren't women stuff.
Exactly. That's the crazy thing.
And at the time, you were very active on Twitter, right? Like, I feel like I'm getting into Twitter now. I feel like, I don't know what it is, like since Musk took over, it's like way more fun. I love how just people are just like get to go more crazy now. And I like how it's the Wild West, but like you got followed by Joe Rogan.
Yes.
So what was that like? Because the other day I did a tweet. I can't remember what it was, but it got liked by Elon Musk. And then, no, actually, because I looked and it was just the person who called themselves Elon Musk. They had like 4 followers. So I was like, yes, no. Okay. I was, but that's gotta be a crazy moment.
It's funny because I even tell this to my students. I say I've had accomplishment. I've been on radio, TV more than I think any other psychologist besides Jordan Peterson in Canada. I've won awards, but being followed by Joe Rogan before I followed him, I say to them, I think that's some like crazy great accomplishment. He's got like however many millions of followers, and he only follows a few thousand. So yeah, that really and it's silly for some people, but for me, it's like wow, because I really look up to him and what he's done. And when Jordan Peterson, Gad Sad, and I were part of this free speech talk in 2017, the host she had asked like who's the kind of at the forefront of the free speech crusade, so to speak.
Yes.
Okay. And I think she said Ben Shapiro, and that was going to be my original answer. But then as soon as she said Ben Shapiro, my mind I said no, it's Joe Rogan. So I said that, and like the whole audience erupted because that was like 5 or 6.
It's true.
It is true. It was almost 6 years ago.
Yeah.
But he was really just taking the world by storm because I believe he's an honest broker. He's he has fascinating guests on sometimes, and it's just there's a curiosity, and he's not afraid to speak his mind, and he's not doing it with malice.
No, I mean, and especially I've noticed as of recently, and tell me what you think about this, but I really think that Jordan Peterson softened Joe Rogan on religion. Because I feel
Okay.
like anytime before Jordan Peterson, if anybody talked about having faith or believing
Right.
in God or stuff like that, like Joe Rogan wouldn't just like disagree with them. He would kind of like go at them. Like, you believe a guy rose from the dead, you stupid idiot. Like, he would go really hard. And I feel like he found it difficult when Jordan Peterson would talk about like believing in God, that he respected him so much that he would listen to that perspective. And I think maybe because Peterson wasn't going at it from like a prepositioned dogmatic
Right.
place, like he wasn't saying like, I'm a Christian, I go to church, but he's just like, there's reasons to believe in God that are totally legitimate. And now, like, I think it was within the last month, he interviewed like an intelligent design guy,
Oh, I hadn't heard that one yet.
like a full intelligent, like
Wow.
a full out intelligent design guy who like I knew of because of my like Christian background,
Right.
but like I knew that the world at large would probably not know who this guy was. Like, I had to do a double take. So I thought that was crazy.
Well, but that shows Joe Rogan's open mindedness, and
Yeah.
that's what's lacking today. And it's funny. I tell people all the time. This is one of my lecture points, which is the best. So it's the same answer to two questions. I ask people, what is either like what do the experts in the field say is either the best definition of intelligence, or it's like everybody agrees that it's a core component of intelligence, and the answer is adaptability. And to me, open-minded, you can't be adaptable without that open-mindedness. And I think Joe Rogan really has that. He really contemplates it. He doesn't usually just take people's word and everything, except for Jack Dorsey when he had him on that one time. But then he had him back on
Well,
again.
but
and
it's not just
remedied
that
himself.
he's open to what people saying, but I feel like even when he does push back, he pushed
Right.
back in a very specific, like, you can tell that when he does push back, he's thought it through,
Right.
right?
Or he's either thought it through, or is he hearing something that doesn't quite make sense, and he's really kind of like elucidate further, really convince me kind of thing. So and look, I'm singing his praises, but he's not perfect. There's
No.
right, but it's refreshing to see someone who I believe is quite genuine in front of everybody, and I think he's really set the stage for a lot of other podcasters to say, you know what, don't put on this shtick or persona, be honest, be
Well,
genuine.
he's arguably the tip of the spear that destroyed what we're calling legacy media,
Right.
right? Like
Yes.
doing long form podcasts,
Right.
like having long form conversations in real time fact checking,
Right.
like that's almost unheard of in like regular TV stuff, right? So moving from Joe Rogan, I want to go back to you.
Okay.
So you became a psychologist.
Yeah.
So why didn't you want to become a real doctor?
I'm afraid of blood.
I think my real question is, what drew you to wanting to help people? Because even that is like I went to Bible college to become a pastor, and it took me a year to realize I was too mean. Like I'm actually not the guy to help people.
Right.
So why helping people, and then why psychology to help people?
Helping people, I'm not quite sure. I'm a pretty selfish person.
Okay.
Okay. So like truly, I mean, it was having kids that changed me more than being a psychologist, as far as, trying to be more be more empathetic, step outside of myself and so on. There's a whole backstory, which I won't get into, but let's just
Sure.
say that, my first year at university, years ago, a whole bunch of stuff happened, and all my grades went from A pluses and A's. They sunk, okay, because of
Okay.
what was happening at the time. Like the very last final exams, I wasn't going to go to university. I was going to lead a totally different life. I said screw it. But the one course where I maintained the A plus was psychology, intro psychology.
Oh, okay.
So it kind of just made me think I've got an aptitude for this. Number one, my grandmother, or my nana on my dad's side, she and I would always talk about psychology and philosophy and everything, and she kind of put that in my mind about that it's such a, let's say, a rich field. It's a respected field at the time. It was. So that's sort of just there, and the fact that, again, that was the one course that I was able to maintain the grades despite the turmoil I was going through at the during the final exams. So when I returned to university, I thought that I've got an aptitude for it. I got a knack, and that was really it. And just all my life, I've known how to engage with people. I don't always do it, but I know how to do it, and so on. So that was really it. It felt right.
Okay. Kind of felt. And what did you go to school for originally?
To shut my mother up. It literally, yeah.
No, that's fine. But I mean, like history.
No, there was because back in the days, it was at U of T.
Yeah.
It was first year. You don't have to declare anything.
Yeah.
Unless you're going
Oh,
into like economics or
fair.
business.
So they have like prerequisites that you have to take, and then you've got electives, and okay.
Yeah, and then
Okay.
the second year you start to decide. And so yeah, so I had just gone like I did like economics. I don't even know what I did, psychology and a few other courses. So
Mhm.
yeah,
Your
history.
your comment about your grandmother reminds me about how like I feel like we come from very different families. Like I don't think I have ever had a conversation about psychology with my grandmother, but that reminds me that you like what was your family like? Because I remember you saying that your father was an artist,
Yeah.
right? So like, tell me more about that.
Okay, so he's the least interesting part of it, maybe. But
Okay.
okay, so my father is an artist with bipolar disorder that was not diagnosed till his 50s.
Okay.
And the funny thing is that all the crazy behaviors he did until he was diagnosed, it was just part of being a crazy artist. Okay, if he, in the middle of the
Yes.
night, if he starts taking all his paintings and throws them in a bonfire, that's just what crazy artists do.
Oh.
If he disappears for 3 days wandering the desert, that's what crazy artists do. So, that kind of thing. Being very moody and so on. So, but it was bipolar disorder.
Hmm.
So that was him, and he worked for the CBC for many years, and he kind of initiated sand and chain animation. Like we're talking stop motion animation. So he won awards for this.
Any shows I would know?
Well, Sesame Street, and
Okay.
he's on the CBC. So a lot of times, a graphic like whether it was for football or something else, they would use his animation for
Oh, okay.
that. So and then a lot of private films, and he was part of the Israeli intelligence. What I can't even say it now. The intellectual elite in Israel
Okay.
back in the days, but he basically got run out of the circles because he was saying, "Look, hey, let's treat Arabs and Palestinians like human beings."
Oh
Right?
my gosh! What
Yeah,
a
so
monster.
yeah, exactly, right? He had to flee the country. He went to the
Mhm.
UK for a while because it was just so intolerable. They just didn't, the people he was with, I guess, they didn't want to hear talking about compassion and seeing people as humans.
Mm.
Because his father was an engineer and he always taught him about science. And no offense, but they kind of eschewed religion,
Yeah.
and it was more about the science.
Well, I want to talk more about that. We'll talk more about that.
So,
Okay, so your dad was so what did that do to you? How did you react to that, realizing that your father's kind of like nuts? Did that make you kind of be more straight lace?
No, not at all. First of all, one thing is I didn't get his talent. I skipped a generation, I guess,
Sure.
'cause I have none of that. But at the same time, while he's being this crazy artist, artists don't make money,
No.
for the most part, at least back in the days. My mother did, and she was originally, she taught, like, I think, at like nursery school, and then she opened up Ontario's and possibly Canada's first sex store. So,
Oh,
yeah.
wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
that's interesting.
I hope on this podcast it's okay to talk about sex.
Oh yeah. No. It's fine. That's so funny.
Yeah, it was called Lovecraft. Closed down a couple of years ago.
Okay.
But yeah, so my family was different from most other families, and we were up at in a quiet middle class neighborhood. We were not middle class; we were Canada poor. We had
Sure.
a roof over our heads, but didn't get anything new. Christmas, birthday, it was the best presents. My dad would make things for us because he was
Yes.
an artist. Really, really cool. But we didn't have much secondhand, third-hand clothes, whatever. So again, we had a roof over our head, so I'm not going to complain about that. But again, we were a different family, and we also had a monkey. So
You had a monkey. What kind of monkey?
ring-tailed capuchin,
Okay, like the one from Friends.
maybe. Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
I think Ross had a capuchin monkey.
Okay. All right, there we go,
that
yeah.
got taken away from Marcel.
Exactly. Yes. Actually, I do remember that because for 1 year for Halloween, someone invited me at the last minute to like some. It was an adult party.
Yeah.
I had nothing, and people said that back in the day I wasn't wearing glasses. I looked like Ross, so I took I took my younger sister's. I think she still had a little monkey doll or whatever. Put her on my shoulder. I said, "I'm Ross." So yeah, I forgot about that. Oh my gosh, that was like 20-something years ago.
I know, right? Dated.
Yeah. Oh, actually more than that. Eesh. So
Did you have? What was his name?
Joan.
Joan.
Yeah. Oh,
And
just so you know, I think I was like 7 years old or something.
Sure.
I just took the order of the family's birthday is like in the calendar year. It was my father's name, Jonathan, Oren, my mother Anne, and my brother Neil. So Joan. So I just came up with that like 6 or 7 years old.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, so part of the thing I want to do in this podcast is since I've started doing comedy, I've just met so many people with like
Right.
spiritual, faith-based backgrounds, but most of them are not actively in that background anymore. And to be straightforward with you, because we have not seen each other in a while, I have not been to church in months.
Is this an intervention?
No,
A reverse intervention. I'm
I'm gonna go to you to get me to go back to church. I don't think that's gonna happen.
I can shame you into doing it.
No. Well, I don't know. I'm in a weird place. I'm in a weird place where like I still 100% believe that there's a God, and I 100% like there's something about Jesus that I feel is unique and like capturing for me, like deeply, but like. Does being a Christian mean I need to do it the way that like the church people say I do? And that's where I'm like, yeah, because I don't know how much you follow it in the news, but there's a church in Ontario called the Meeting House.
No, I haven't heard that.
They're based in Oakville.
Okay.
They might be the closest thing to a mega church that Ontario has.
Okay.
And their pastor last year just went down for having like an 8-year affair, like early in the church's history. And it's they've like the whole thing's just it was like multi-site, thousands of people. Their main site, like I played guitar there, I think it's got like a 2,000 person capacity.
Wow,
it's insane. And now, from what I understand, it's crumbling. But it's like, how many pastors of these big churches that people venerate do I need to see go down to realize that like the people who are at the helm of the ship are stupid fucking idiots who have no idea what the fuck they're doing.
Right.
That's kind of like where I am right now. Like this whole time, it's like you need to revere these people. I'm like, actually, I think a lot of these people don't know what they're talking about.
Right.
Like when the last time I was at church, the pastor was talking about like making sure you make good friends. I'm 40 years old. Like I don't make friends. I lose friends. I'm actively losing friends. Like this is not like what are we talking? Why is this so infantile? And there's just a lack of depth. But I want to create a space where I can talk about spiritual things in the secular world.
Right.
That's like part of what I want this podcast to be.
Okay.
So what role so obviously you have a Jewish background. So if Jewish-esque. So what part did that play in your life? Obviously your father was run out of Israel.
So he went out of his way to make sure that religion didn't infiltrate the home.
Mm-hmm.
He was very anti-religion because he saw what it did to people. And he was he studied history, so he knew the bad sides of it. My mother, she tried to maintain some of the traditions, so we would have Christmas and Hanukkah and do all these things, and we'd be dragged to some friend's place, and you'd have to sit for 3 hours listening to speeches, whatever. It was never a big part of it. It was more of a kind of like a custom, a tradition.
Sure.
So it didn't play any role whatsoever. And my father never wanted me to go to Israel because he was terrified, given his lineage, that they would keep me there and try to put me in the army or try to recruit me, because just again his family goes way back.
Sure. Okay. So, like, what do you mean way back?
So before the creation of Israel, like I think 6 generations. I forgot how many generations ago, but his great whatever grandfather was I think a mukhtar, like a leader of the village, stuff like that. So the family, they have roots in Israel or Palestine or whatever it was before. So he's just afraid that the lineage would dictate that I had to stay.
Gotcha.
So,
And did he try to like instill like an anti-religious, not just like a religious, but like anti-religious?
He was very anti-religious, but he didn't ever try to instill it in us. That's the one thing. He never tried to make us think a certain way other than seeing reality and, like being grounded in reality.
Sure.
So
what was your perception? Because growing up in Canada, you weren't in Israel. What was your perception of religion or religious people in Canada growing up?
Yeah, I was probably a bit closed-minded at first. Just like our family's so liberal. Like we're the most liberal family you're going to see.
Yes.
I can go into it. My parents adopted a black baby before Madonna thought it was a good career move. Okay.
Yeah.
So and my sister was also adopted. So very liberal-minded, very hippie and everything like that. So I think even though they didn't try to inculcate us with any anti-religion stance, it was kind of around the people. It permeated the people that we were with. So I was a bit closed-minded. And now when I get, as I'm getting older, I say it outright in class. I say, I have no right, and I say to the students as well, you have no right to shit on somebody because their belief tells them or dictates that, for example, a man cannot be a woman and vice, things like that. And if they're against, gay marriage, my sister got married to a woman. I was there, of course. I support them. I'm very, my brother and sister are both gay. Well, he passed away last year.
Brother and sister.
Yeah, both adopted,
Yes.
both gay. Just happens to be, right?
Yeah.
So, and all the employees at my mom's store, the males, when I was younger, they were all gay. I didn't know that. She didn't introduce me, to gay Bob or Jalil or Larry, but
Sure.
but I was just surrounded by it. So, like, we were basically kind of, we weren't taught. We were just, it was modeled for us to treat people for who they are and so on. So, but there was still that kind of sort of like a narrow-minded bent against, or a stance against religion itself, even though no one told me. It was there. And as I got older, it's like, no, it's like if someone has a belief system, if they believe in something greater than them, if they take the positives of religion and see, like trying to be a better person, it's like the big book in AA. It's basically, it tells you how to lead a good life. And as long as you're not trying to impose those beliefs on others, or saying, because of my beliefs, I'm going to make sure that you can't do this, or must do that. I say, I have respect for people, who follow something that, again, they're trying to be better. They're trying to be something above themselves. They're trying to strive for something better than, whether it's family, community, religion, whatever it is. So, so my views have shifted. And again, I'm one of the few people in university who will stand up and say, you can't shit on people for that, right? Like, there's no, you can't. And same with, if you're pro-life, pro-choice, whatever, I say that's their belief. As long as they're not interfering with someone else's, right to do something, let them have that belief.
Sure.
So,
Unless it's the baby's right to be born, and then it's
Well, look, hey, I say in class, I go, look, I say I'm pro-choice. I say, but I say I don't deny reality. I say I know that I'm making a choice, that I'm prioritizing one person's life over the other. I don't pretend that that's not a life.
See, that's and I think like that's that Bill Burr sketch, right? Like, or I think even CK, like, you're killing a baby, right? Like, it's just like, at least be honest about it, right? Like, I say pro-life with a seatbelt. Like, that's that's kind of my thing. But when I first started seeing you, one of the things that you talked about was like, especially in relation to faith, was the synchronicity.
Yeah, that's my religion.
Of life. Well, but that really spoke to me, because I feel like that's almost how I see, like, I feel like God doesn't speak to us in like these big miracles, like the supernatural miracles all the time. And I feel like this is one of the things that I think changed my views, or expanded me, was the fact, like, that my view of God is bigger than what Christianity presents him to be. And I feel like Jordan Peterson is like almost responsible for that, in the sense of like, what does a God who can manipulate the fabric of time need to do crazy like miracles for, when he can literally manipulate, if he wanted to, if this God is all powerful, manipulate all of the events to make them go a certain way. But just going back to the synchronicity thing, is like, that's where I see it the most. It's not in crazy miracles, but just the way things fall into place, especially when you as an individual are like walking in your path. Like, when you're most in line with it, if that makes sense.
Well, and that can be framed in so many different ways. So in therapy, I talk about people's values. I say, understand your core values, basically who you want to be, how you want to be, how you want to live life, and so on. And so if you're walking in line with that, if you're living aligned with those values, you're going to feel better. You're going to feel, you're going to sleep better. Your just life is going to seem more in sync, and that opens up the possibility for other things to happen. And same with synchronicity. If you're not aware of it, if you just say, "Oh, there's a coincidence," and you brush it off, well, that's it. Nothing happened. But if something happens, and even if there's no scientific evidence for it, but you go, "Oh, wow, that's kind of cool. Maybe there's something to it," and you pursue it. Who knows what's going to happen? It's that adaptability, and it's the open mindedness, and going, I have no idea where it's going to lead me, but I'm going to check it out.
Yes, and it's just one of those things that, like, sometimes those moments, they only make sense to you,
Right.
Like, you can't, like, it happens to you, and you're like, oh, that makes sense. That reminds me of what happened here. It's like almost like a deja vu of new events. Somehow, if that makes sense. And then you just like the comedy thing, right? Like, I told you, like, just a little nugget, like, I want to get into comedy, and you're like, okay, buddy.
Hey, I don't think I shat on
No, no,
that.
no. I mean, I don't think you said, but like that seems like a far fetched. Maybe I'm. You know what I'm thinking of is I'm thinking of my pastor. I'm thinking of my
Yeah,
pastor
geez.
who I said I think I want to do comedy. That's what's going to turn my life around. He's just like, oh, okay. He was, but
Yeah, no, I want to set the
yeah, no,
record
that's
straight for your
fair.
audience. Yeah, I was like, yeah, great. 'Cause, whether
Yeah.
it was painting, comedy,
Well,
right?
you can see in my garage the all of the paint stains on the floor. I'm gonna have to get a solvent to take care of that before I move.
Right. Well, hey, look again. It's not allowing yourself to be constrained by the expectations of others. Okay, I mean, we
Well,
have
it's not even that. I feel like it's the expectations we put on
and
ourselves.
ourselves. Yeah, yeah.
Because for me, I thought it was music the whole
Right.
time,
Yeah.
right? Like I started playing guitar when I was 13, and I thought I
Right.
got to do this, and then and then that becomes wrapped up in your identity, and then I became the guy that owned all the gear. I had 10
Right.
guitars and every guitar pedal that was ever made, and obviously an exaggeration, although I would still love it. If I ever came into money, I would just
Right.
pack out a room full of guitars, and no, I don't care about cars. Just give me guitars. Um, but it was like when I gave that up, and
Right.
gave comedy what it. I don't know. Should I continue the thought?
Yeah. Why not?
Yeah, I knew that if I wanted to do comedy, and almost like realizing that like comedy was the thing all along. Like
Right.
I never felt like I had anything to say with music. Like I never thought like
Right.
I was like, oh, my girlfriend broke up with me. Like I never felt like I had anything to say unless it was funny.
Right.
Like that, right? And it was like that was the thing the entire time. And I don't know where I got. Like I always thought like I got to do music. I had this. Have you seen that Stutz documentary?
Yes. Yes.
Where he talks about the man, it's good. The snapshot
Right.
about like I've got to make an album. I've got to do this. Like I had this in my mind for years.
Right.
Years. This unachieved goal was like I was putting this pressure on myself unnecessarily because I hadn't made an album or I wasn't in a band. Even
Right.
though in the early 2010 I was in a band and I hated it.
Right.
It was a lot of work. And then then I realized at the church I was going to, we had this guy named Andy Cherry come to be the music pastor, and he's from the U.S. He had been on The Voice, like
Right.
an incredible musician, and I realized, oh, this is what somebody who like loves music is really like, and
Right.
like I clearly don't love music. I didn't love it enough to like practice or like write songs or like do any of it. It was like, oh, okay, I get it now.
Right.
Sorry, unless yeah.
No, but it's this idea. It's actually interesting because you said about like the unfulfilled, ambition.
Mhm.
One thing, this is from Therapy Act, which acceptance and
Yes.
commitment therapy. It talks about values versus goals, and they say forget the goals. Okay, like people because goals like making an album seem too far off, can be ambiguous. You don't know what the first step is. What it says is look at your values. What if you wanted to make an album, for example? What kind of values would you need to embody in order to be able to do that? And you can do that right now.
Mhm.
So whether it's creativity, whether it's hard work, whatever else like that, you can still evince that. But you had to find the right path to do that, and that's where the comedy's coming in, and doing the clubs and everything like that, right? So you just had to find the right path, to take that on. So
Mhm.
anyway, so I just want to throw that out there. And also something you said about spirituality and everything,
Mhm.
because you were talking about all these, like priests or pastors, or whatever, who are just basically frauds, either or hypocrites.
And not all of them.
Not all-
That's
no,
an
no, not all of them.
exaggerated.
Yeah.
Like there is one guy I want to have him on the podcast who's probably the one person I would say is like a true pastor. Like
Okay.
we're like in his person, that's who he is.
Right.
So, but
Well, I was going to say
Yeah.
the thing is, and I say this all the time because I've had many patients who go into the world of wellness, spirituality, and so on, and I say you got to watch out because that's where you see so many people who claim to be a Buddhist or be about peace and love and wellness and everything, and they are the antithesis of that, and they're dangerous because you're going in there hoping to find a community of people who will accept you, who will value you, and so on, and in reality, a lot of them are just as messed up as everybody else, and they're using it as like a mask almost.
yeah, and it's tough. I'm conflicted too because at least for me, because I didn't grow up churched. I wasn't raised Christian. I had my crazy magic mushroom experience. But like I feel like I'm one of the people that like benefited a lot from going to church. Like I found that community, I found that purpose. It was almost like a place where I could, yeah, they were the parents I didn't get to have. right? The forgiving parents, the
Right.
encouraging parents, the supportive parents, and yeah, so conflict in that one.
That's tricky, but you can't be black and white. Like there's got to be
No.
nuance in that, and yeah. So I mean, I'm hoping it's funny because when you're talking about, do I really have to do church the way or do religion the way that church says? That's like people I have who, and by the way, I talk out of both. It sounds like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth, but I'm not.
Mhm.
I think it's nuanced, which is I have a lot of, let's say, patients who are addicts.
Mhm.
So they go, look, okay, I'm going to AA or I'm going to this 12-step or this program or whatever, and they go, but it doesn't all work for me. So they pick and choose what works for them. And in some cases, like for people who don't like the religious aspect, right? Because you can do it a higher power that doesn't have to be God, it can be something else, right? But if I say, what, if it's not about the religion, that's fine. Like, find something else that's above you, great. But then other people, they find other things. Well, the whole thing about sobriety, like they basically, they're picking and choosing in a way that makes them feel comfortable. They delude themselves into thinking they're doing the right steps, but in reality, they're not. They're lying to themselves, okay? Versus the other people, I go, yeah, if this doesn't work for you, this part, yet you're still able to truly make the change, truly start leading the life that's best for you, great. The question is, do you have the insight to be able to distinguish between the two, like lying to yourself versus truly being able to go, yeah, this is the right decision. So
Well, and yeah, and that's almost where I am is becoming honest with myself. Like it seems like being a Christian, especially in the evangelical world, means like taking up the hobby of being like a Bible scholar, like in your spare time, and like I don't like to read as it is,
right.
let alone like read the Bible all the time. And yeah, I needed to get real with myself. You were talking about therapy. I want to go back into that, which is talking about what's going on with the state of psychology in Ontario.
I've got to be careful because
Absolutely.
yeah, I am a member of the college.
Yes.
Still at this point. So what's going on? In my own podcast, Awake at the Wheel, my
Yes.
colleague and I, Melanie, we did talk about that in some of the podcasts, which is there have been some really, I think, negative changes, and this is how. At the same time, I think it happened within a few months of each other. I don't want to. If someone fact checks me, I may be wrong. But not only did I get banned for life from Twitter for 4 years for
Yes.
nonsensical reasons, I got banned from the Ontario Psychological Association for life around the same time. Now the OPA, people confuse this.
Yeah.
It's
So
not
yeah,
the college.
yeah. So I was going to say, what are the implications of that?
Okay, really well, I'll tell you in a second.
Sure.
So the college, if I were banned from the college, that would mean I can't practice. They regulate the profession. But the OPA is just a volunteer membership. And for me, the implication was that I lose contact with thousands of colleagues. If I ever want to ask questions, if I want to get resources, I can't reach out to them.
Okay.
And that's what it'd be for. And B, and I've got emails to show this. I got the receipts, as the kids say. All right. The board of directors, when they banned me, I said, look, I won't even go on the listserv because they banned me because I was being too aggressive on the listserv because this is all around the gender issue. Ever since 2016 when Peterson made his famous 2 videos.
Yes.
And it all started because one of my colleagues said, hey, isn't it great that, Jordan Peterson is putting psychology on the map? Like now they're talking about us.
Yes.
And a few people said, not everyone thinks it's so great. He's a misogynistic, homophobic, blah, blah. And they just went on. And I piped in and said, where's the evidence for that? Right? I said, aren't we supposed to be better than that? We don't just throw anyway. So that started the whole thing, and then I started, every day almost, I'd post another study, another article, another, video showing this whole thing is going way off the rails.
Yes.
And I said, as psychologists, our job is to kind of say to people, hey, here's the fact. Here's the fiction. Here's what everything in between. I said we should take a leading position to try to say, to tell the public what's what in these areas. Okay.
Yeah, and it seems as though like that position is today bearing out. Like,
Yes.
isn't it now?
Yep.
The majority of European countries have banned transitions for minors and
Yes.
things like that.
Exactly, and whether it's surgical or hormonal, especially, and in Canada and the States, they're going the opposite. Well, some states, depending,
Sure.
right? They're going younger and younger, and so so everything I was warning about, and not just that, but just the conceptions of gender. Like now, the WPATH, the World Professional Association for Transgender Health, in their latest Standards of Care, Volume 8, now they have as one of the gender identities a eunuch. So if a child comes in and says, I am a eunuch, if that's their gender identity, then it's the professional's job to basically affirm it. And how do you affirm a eunuch? Chemical or medical, physical castration,
Sheesh.
surgical
So it's
castration.
like,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There's nothing to say about that. It's insane.
well, I'm not part of it, so it sounds like a gross loophole. Like if for letting it through, that's
Yeah, it's again. These are the kind of and I warned about this. I said I didn't say about eunuchs per se, but I was talking about all how gender is just meaning nothing right now. It's just like anyway. So the point is, I was trying to really speak out about this, and because you asked me about the state of psychology,
sure.
so the people's responses, and a lot of them, I'm not going to say it, but a lot of them came from the same university.
Yes.
Okay, I could check their background. Yep, makes sense. And so they're promulgating ideology, not
Yes.
science, not facts, not evidence, not best practices.
Hmm.
And that's what really worried me, and that's what's happening today. So they're mistaken. And I don't want to sound like a B level or a D level Jordan Peterson,
No,
but
no, no. I mean, like, well, you're in the same world
yeah,
from a psychology perspective. Like, yes, he's more popular, but I mean, you guys are colleagues.
Yeah, we are colleagues, and he doesn't practice anymore.
Hmm.
I'm still practicing, so I'm seeing it. I'm hearing from my patients. I'm seeing in my discussion with colleagues that that basically we are mistaking what compassion is. It's not compassionate to fuel a delusion. It's not compassionate not to say to someone, "Hey, you know what? This might not be the best decision for you. Let's talk about it. Let's figure out what's best for you."
Yeah. Well, I mean, I love the argument that I've heard some people make is that if you're dealing with somebody with anorexia, you
Yeah.
don't affirm it.
Exactly. And then people get upset. They get it's so different. Well, for people with true gender dysphoria, maybe there are some, I mean, there are some, fundamental differences, but there are also a lot of similarities. And for a lot of the people today who are claiming to be trans or to have, non-binary, etc., I mean, it's pretty clear. It's a social contagion
Well,
for many people.
that was gonna be my question. Is this a social
Oh,
contagion?
no
Yeah.
doubt.
Yeah.
Now, not for everybody. That's the whole thing. Again, so if there's no nuance, if it's black and white, then it's all social contagion, right? Or it's all a legitimate thing. Versus, no, it's for some people, it's an actual
Well,
condition.
I think I've heard Abigail Schreier and Deborah
Right.
So
Yep.
both say that the phenomena amongst for boys in particular at very young ages that manifesting is a real phenomena.
Right.
So yeah, exactly. There is
Right.
nuance to that.
Although even with the young boys, again, most of them, if you just let them be, the history shows this. I've spoken to the colleagues. I've seen all the research. If you just leave them be, they would just turn out to be gay boys. That's
Yes.
it. Okay.
Yeah.
With no need to transition in any way. So
Okay.
right. Anyway, so yes, the point is, so the feel. I don't want to harp on the the gender side of it, but that's I think a manifestation of I think where psychology has gone wrong. And I've had so many patients. I've had women
Hmm.
and I've had mothers. Okay, both reach out to me, like women directly saying that they want therapy from a male. Or I've had mothers who say, they have a younger, like an adolescent or an adult young daughter, and they say that she's been in therapy for years. She's had these female psychologists, and I'm not shitting on them because
No, no,
my
no.
colleague Mally, she is female as well. So it's not about the female per se; it's about the feminization of psychology, which
Mm.
is not holding people to account, not promoting stoicism when necessary, and it's balancing compassion and empathy with these other kind of tools and skills, and encouraging people to be proactive and to have hardiness and to be resilient,
Yeah.
right? To do both. Whereas so many people are saying no. They said, "Oh, my therapist just commiserated with me. They just told me poor." And again, I'm not saying all psychologists are doing that, but I'm
Hmm.
seeing more and more people do that, and they're afraid to really challenge the patient in a compassionate way.
Hmm. And that was going to be one of my questions is why do you think people are resistant to therapy for that reason?
Uh, s- a lot are because they have this impression, okay, that people are resistant to therapy for a lot of different reasons. But I think currently they're really afraid that that's what they're going to get. They're going to get
Mm.
someone who just holds their hand. Whereas other people, they want that because they want to be told it's not your fault. It's society's fault. You're not allowed to be your authentic self. They don't let you put the poodle in the microwave to express yourself. Come on.
Yeah.
Okay, like right, so that some people want that, but others they want someone truly to, and that's why Jordan Peterson and others have become so popular because they're
Mm.
saying, hey, do stand up for yourself, do right by yourself and by others.
Well, yeah, I mean, I feel like he was a really discovering him, and it took years to get to from discovering him to getting to where I am now, but just that the sense of like believing in yourself that you could actually, despite things being difficult, you could actually uh suc you could succeed. Like, why not you? Why not
Right.
me? When it becomes to whatever goal it is that I'm trying to achieve.
Right.
I was thinking, so what was it like at that time? So how did you meet Jordan Peterson, by the way? Like, because I know that
It's
you teach at different schools.
right.
So
Synchronicity again.
yes,
Okay, it's synchronicity. So we met several different ways. So one was my father, because of his bipolar disorder. I
mhm,
know for a while back, Jordan Peterson, I believe, according to my dad, was saying that he thought he had bipolar disorder himself. So
mhm,
my father had done one of his sand and chain animation movies, capturing the experience of bipolar disorder. It's a great film.
okay,
And so I reached out to Jordan Peterson and said, "Hi, you know, and I think with the time I don't want to get it wrong because I'd met him another way. Okay, I'll tell you in a second.
sure,
So I'd reached out to him in that way. This was well before 2016,
mhm,
telling him about this movie. Okay, and I think we sent him a copy. Before then, by pure synchronicity, he was on my dissertation committee when I was, for my
oh,
PhD.
cool,
Yeah, because my supervisor was friends with him,
mhm,
friends and colleagues, I guess. So yeah, so he was on that. Just pure synchronicity.
okay,
And then, so that was the two times. And then in 2016, at the time when he's making his videos, one of my students, she had, she said basically, she was talking with Jordan Peterson, and she had a dim view of psychology because she had seen where it was going, and she loved Jordan Peterson because she had him for some course or something. And so I basically said to her, I forget how it came about. She said, "You want him to speak at your class, like give a guest lecture?" I said, "Yeah, get out of here. You couldn't do that." She goes, "Watch me." And she
okay,
arranged it.
okay,
So yeah, so at the beginning of 2017, he came to my class, gave a guest lecture.
yeah,
It was all over the internet, and so we kind of got together there through that.
okay,
And then Serena, the woman who did that, she also then had this free speech talk later that year that got canceled. It was
yes,
right. It was ironic because the whole thing was about stifling of free speech on campus. It was supposed to happen at my university.
which was promptly
It
stifled.
was exactly. Yep. And then and a month or two later, Serena she went and she got a bigger venue,
Mhm.
and we it was just overflowing. It was just such a big event. So by the way, I got to say, if I may, every time I talk about it, I have to give my mea culpa. I don't have that many regrets in life. I
Mhm.
really don't. But that day, I am so ashamed because we each had like 20 minutes to give a speech. And literally the night before, she told us that, oh, you know what? We weren't supposed to have PowerPoints. She said, you can have PowerPoints. Okay. So
Yes.
that night, I was like, oh, and I started doing these PowerPoints. And I was getting really into it. And I didn't sleep that night. I taught in the morning. I had to pick up cats out from the airport. It sounds like I'm making excuses.
Mhm.
I'm being upfront. I was so excited and I put all these PowerPoints, and my speech, which was 20 minutes, ended up becoming 40 minutes. Yeah,
Oh,
and here I am. I'm the third act. Okay, I'm the what's it, the opening act for it was me,
yes.
then Gatz, and then Jordan Peterson, right? And I went 40 minutes. Actually, Gatz went first, but anyway, so but I was not the main attraction. I was not the attraction. I
Sure.
was a barnacle. So and I went 40 minutes, and Jordan's wife was apparently because she was supposed to wave us, and she was like wave like saying like
Stop. Yeah,
stop
yeah.
it, and I was just caught up in the moment. And
Yes.
it just I got down this rabbit hole because the power and it's just and I just felt so mortified. Like that's just so narcissistic. I mean, it just
This is like the psychology version of running the light.
yes.
Just
Yes, like oh gosh. So I'm so like again, it was just I feel terrible about that. And again, it was just like I was in the right head, or was not in the right headspace. And
sure.
yeah,
Well,
so
yeah, I guess you're nervous. You're doing this like how often do you do large speaking events like
like
that?
this. Yeah, I mean, I've been on TV and radio all the
Yes.
time, but this live event with Jordan Peterson and Gad Sad, yeah. So I feel it's like, oh my gosh. So I just every time I have a chance, I always want to apologize for that because the people didn't pay to see me; they paid to see
Yeah, I
Jordan.
think if this was 2017, I think you could let it go. I think you're good.
I don't know. I'm still.
So what was it like at that time? So you were saying like in the psychological Ontario Psychological Association, Jordan Peterson is getting huge because it
Yeah,
wasn't long after that he went on Rogan.
yeah, yeah.
And what was that like? Because I found that people talk about like having their like red pill moment, and I
Right,
feel like him going on Rogan wasn't my red pill moment. It was how Jordan Peterson was treated in the media
right,
afterward, because his argument, because he was talking about Bill C-16, and I felt like his arguments were very specific.
yeah,
The policies that undergird that law in them say like these should be enacted in light of the Ontario Human Rights Code.
right,
Right, that was the sticking point, right? And which says that if you misgender somebody, it can be called harassment or
yeah,
whatever. And so that was his specific point. And then no single media organization ever referenced that. I never heard any of them mention the Ontario Human Rights Code in any of their criticisms of him.
Right.
And I listened to, like, I was obsessed at the
Yep.
that time. Obsessed. I heard everything that guy said, and nobody represented him accurately. So, like, what was your take when that was happening?
Well, it was very frustrating because I was watching our colleagues misrepresent him.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I can understand pundits or whatever misrepresenting, but psychologists. And I even said
Yeah.
that. I remember in one of my back channel communications, I was saying to them, I go, "We should be better than that. We should be using critical thinking." And it's one. And what one of the people wrote to me, and she said, "I have never heard something so." I forget how she said, it, but she was basically disgusted that I would say that as psychologists we should have certain aptitudes, abilities, ways of thinking, perspectives that other people don't have. And she was shocked that I would say that. I said, look, it's not crazy to expect a basketball player to be able to jump higher than average, or for an accountant to be better at math than other people. But
Mm-hmm.
if somehow for a psychologist to hold ourselves, I wasn't being arrogant about it. I wasn't saying we have superpowers. I just said that we are trained to be critical thinkers. So we should be actually looking at what Jordan Peterson is really saying. We should be looking at the evidence around him and see
Mm-hmm.
whether there's merit or not. Don't just call him homophobe, transphobe, racist, blah, blah, blah. Because so many of my colleagues were doing that. And they did the same thing to me. So when you ask, what's it
Yes.
like? When I'm having my own words, I was having my Jordan Peterson moments literally day after day for a period of time where
Yes.
they would say something and I said, "Show me where I said that." I'd say,
Yeah.
"I did not say that." I had colleagues saying, "I would never send a patient to you because you're going to do harm to them because you're such a terrible person." Like I said, show one thing that I've ever said that would suggest that I'm a menace to society or to my
Yeah.
patients. And then when I would call them to account, hold them to account, what would everyone say? "Oh, here he's going on and on and on." So they would libel me
Yes.
or and when I tried to defend myself, then other people would come and say, "Oh, why do you care so much?" Okay, like that they're
Yes.
libeling you,
I
and
find that that's what a lot of people say when you talk about these types of issues is like, why do you care so much? And like, why am I not allowed to? To
exactly,
be like, yeah,
yeah, and
that's
especially when you care about people besmirching your name and just taking your words out of context and accusing you of saying things that you didn't say, and then saying some ridiculous stuff. I got to say this one
mhm.
colleague, he actually said to me, and he said, and this was maybe 20, like, it was before I was banned, so maybe 2018 or so. It was already happening where he was like, "Really?" He said, Can you really tell me that you think that any student would ever would adopt a trans identity just for clout or for to be accepted?" He said, "Nobody would do that." I said, "Have you read the papers? Have you like?" I said, "Have you ever worked with any youth?" Of course they would. And we know now that when 20% of people are suddenly of young people identifying as LGBT etc, then we know that yes, people do that.
I
And this
mean,
person had no clue.
it appears that way, or definitely like an affiliation. Like
Right.
in the comedy world, there are people who start their sets by saying their pronouns. Like it,
And they're not being ironic.
no,
Okay.
no, 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 no. Yeah, they always. I tend to steer clear of those shows. They don't like me.
Yeah. There's a name for that kind of
Safe space comedy.
oh, okay.
That's what I call it.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
Yeah, safe
Uh,
space, safe, because there's two extremes that go to each side, right? There's the safe space comedy where they really go. This is my opinion of it: is that they love clapter,
right.
right?
Exactly.
Say
Yeah.
things that people agree
Thank you
with.
for using that term.
Because when I see those types of people do real comedy, like real comedy shows where it's not just that kind of
Right.
club, they'll say things that you can tell typically get a reaction and they
Right.
don't.
Right.
And then there's the opposite extreme where so there's say things that people agree with, and then there's the edgelords who
Right.
just want to say the most offensive thing that they possibly can. And in both cases, there's whether it's things people agree with or things that shock you, they're supplementing those things with surprise, which is how you actually write real
Right.
jokes.
Right.
Is say something that's like playfully inappropriate, something that's going to surprise your audience, and instead I'm going to shock them or I'm going to say something that they're going to love.
Right.
And so I don't, I probably venture into the edge lord world more than I do in the safe space world.
Can we? So then, where would let's say Tony Hinchcliffe and Kill Tony? I don't find that as edgelord because he's actually really really funny. So
I think it depends. I think they're in this U.S. They're definitely just straight comedy, in Toronto, they would be considered like the Edgelord group
Oh, I
because
see.
like in Toronto we have what's called casting couch, and that's like almost our version of Kill Tony,
Okay.
but like people go like hard.
Okay. When we said casting coach, I thought there was something. There's a different
I
meaning.
think it's meant to elicit that same response, but no, it's just three funny guys on a couch, kind of shouting at you while you do your 5 minutes. So I did that last Saturday.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Wait, were you the couch sitter or the?
No, I was one of the comics. Actually, it was it was at the Danforth Comedy Bar location, and they had a comic in the U.S. named Ian Fidance.
Oh yeah, I've seen him on
Yeah,
Cool Tony.
and then I made a I made a bad play, and he said, I can't remember the circumstance exactly, but he said something, and I said, who is this guy, right? Like just trying to be funny, and he got really insulted by it. Like we got off on the wrong foot, and then like in real time, but I managed to do some jokes, and like I think I turned it around. Like I think he saw that like my jokes were funny, and so
Okay.
it was fine. I sent him a message on Instagram. I don't think he got it, but I just said like sorry if you were
Right.
insulted like that. I was just trying to be funny, right? So
Right.
uh,
And that's the thing. Look, I mean, we know for a fact. I've had a number of patients who are comedians,
mhm.
professional comedians, and we know that.
Who?
Well, there's one. Anyway, so we know that neurosis, neuroticism, and so on is huge among comedians, and as all comedians say, if you had a normal life, you're not going to be a good comedian, right?
No,
Right.
no. I was talking to a comedian the other day, and I was saying like it would be better to not need to do this.
Right.
Right, like I did. I'll give you an example. A few weeks ago, I got I somehow got the opportunity to do like a private party.
Yeah.
So it was all these like yuppies in like their late 20s, early 30s, but they all made way more money than me. Like
Right.
these were all the people like they should be the advertisement for why you should stay in school and like
Right.
follow the path that society prescribes, because like it was three like broke ass comedians followed by a broke ass fire dancer.
Okay.
Right, but it was all these like yuppies with like
Right.
plenty of money, and it was like I would rather be in the crowd
Right.
if I had the choice. I mean, it's cooler to be the comic, but like
Right.
just sometimes I wish I could have be a normal person, but I've given up on that now, so I'm good.
Mm. Okay.
Just
Well,
gonna lean into it.
yeah, I was gonna say, I don't know. I'm sorry. To me, normal is boring.
It is boring, but I mean, but also it's like boring is spending all your evenings with your kids.
Right. Right. Yeah, well, so the road less traveled. So, but yeah, so it's funny because if I just throw one in there, because Ian, I think Ian has been on Kill Tony a number of times,
Mhm.
and another guest, I'm not going to name him, but he was on Kill Tony recently, and like he's always bragging about how much money he has, and he's always doing it as a joke.
Sure.
But he's flexing, and he's trying to, and he puts the other comedians down, whether it's colleagues or these up and comers.
Yeah.
Right. And so he, and again, he's trying to come across as like, I'm so successful, blah blah blah. But underneath it, it's just such neurosis. And the funny thing is, before I got banned from Twitter, I got Me Too'd, hashtag Me
Oh,
Too'd by a comedian.
okay.
Who was on? It was like the roast battles that they were holding in New York. Louis J. Gomez would host the shows. I
Okay.
forget what the club was. But anyway, so I loved it, and
Mhm.
because they were some of the best roast battles I'd seen, better than the ones in L.A. I thought, the ones in New York. So anyway, so there was one time I was just watching a few of them, and I would tweet like if there was a really good one, I'd post it. I'd say kudos to the winner, whatever.
Mhm.
And there was one where I was like just at the beginning of this whole thing, or at some point, I just watched a few. And all the judges are usually hilarious. There
Yes.
happened to be three judges. I think it was like two different episodes. I can't remember, but they just happened to all be women.
Mhm.
So I basically said, the roasters were great, the judges are great. I said, except for, and I said, the three women. Okay?
Sure.
I don't know if I named them. I did name them because, okay, I just, I'm saying anyway,
Yeah.
so I named them. I wasn't trying to be a dick about it. I
Yeah.
know, look, I understand it came across as dickish. I get that.
Yeah.
Right. I wasn't trying to hurt anyone's feelings. I just said that. And then those three women came at me hard.
Okay.
Okay. And I was, so they were saying stuff, and I'm joking around with them. You're
Yes.
comedians. So, and one of them, who happens to be Canadian,
Yeah.
who's married to this guy I was just talking about, who's always flexing.
Okay.
I'm joking with her as well. He comes on, starts calling me
Oh,
the C word and everything like that. And I'm like, I made some kind of joke. I forget what the actual joke was, but it had to do with who's like basically I was implying that he was castrated because he was coming to his wife. I forget how I
Yes.
said it,
Yeah.
but I said it in a clever way. It was actually pretty funny. People are commenting how funny it was, and he just went off on me and then just blocked me, as did the other women. But one of them was engaging with me. And she was
Okay.
like saying all these horrible things. Your mother should have had an abortion and blah blah. Like, you're a terrible husband. You're a terrible father. Just
Yes.
saying all, and every time she would say that, I would make a joke about it. Okay,
Yes.
and some people are commenting saying it's really sad when the psychologist is funnier than the professional comedian.
That's so
right?
funny.
And this person on her Twitter account, it was basically saying that she's sassy and she doesn't. There's no PC BS here and everything.
Yeah.
And then she literally wrote in the in the thing hashtag Me Too, and I said to her, Are you using that term? And this was around the Me Too time. I said, I said this movement that is for legitimate whatever, like assault and harassment. I said, you're using this because I criticized your comedy. And she said, yes, you've ruined my night. You've devastated me. She's going on and on and on. And she tagged my university. Is this the kind of person you
Ugh.
want? And that's when she had hashtag Me Too.
Yeah.
It was insane. So when again talking about the neuroses underlying a lot of comedians, and like I said, she said some horrific things to me, and I thought it was funny because she's a comedian. I thought in the
Yeah.
context, but wow, and then a couple of let's say simp comics who are not I watched their videos. They were not good, and they had no audience or anything like that.
Yeah.
They came on her side.
Yes.
Everybody else, the professionals, aside from the one guy who yelled at me and then blocked me. They didn't want anything to do with it. I think it was
I'm
pathetic.
surprised how much people take any of it seriously.
Yes.
Like I was talking to a comic and I was joking around about how like I don't think we should have freed Britney. Like like in retrospect, I think maybe was the wrong decision. Obviously, I'm just joking around. Like this guy's like, I think he's like, no, I disagree. Everybody should be free. I'm like, I think less people. Like, I'll just take a contrary position and run with it. Like, I think less people should be free. Like, I want to go through Trinity Bellwoods Park with a gun that shoots people with a straitjacket. I just want to just round them all up. What do you think? And I could tell he was just getting upset. I'm like, do you think I mean any of this?
Wait, he was a comic.
Yeah. But it's people are people though.
I know, but yeah, that's wow. And it's funny because a number of years ago, I was doing this radio interview for the study that confirmed something I always believed.
Okay.
So I'm glad that there's actual evidence. And I will use this, which basically said that they did a study and they showed that, well, I'm going to ask you, what do you think differentiates, besides the sense of humor, people who can appreciate dark humor versus those who can't? There was one factor.
What differentiates people who can appreciate dark humor and those who cannot?
Yeah. The trait.
Open-mindedness?
Definitely open-mindedness, yes. Okay. And something else.
Is it like in the the 5 personality?
Well, it's funny because when you talk about openness, they use that, and it's
Is it like people who are like compassionate, like really
No.
compassionate
Oh, no,
people?
no.
Okay. No, I have no idea.
intelligence.
Intel.
Okay, it takes a level of intelligence to be able to take all these different factors and kind of like integrate them and see the humor in it, as opposed to being offended and not being able to suppress that that knee jerk reaction. So
Well, this is one of the things I wanted to. You love comedy, like you were one of you told me about Kill Tony first,
Right.
and you introduced me to Crashing, which was hugely important. So not. I feel like it's almost like Spinal Tap for comedy,
Right.
Like
Yeah.
it's obviously it's the speed with which he goes through up the ranks
right.
is obviously different, but like all the things you encounter are 100% true. And then the fact that like he's Christian just made it like even better for me.
Synchronicity.
Yeah. So what is it that draws you to comedy?
Well, again, I guess the intelligence part of it. I'm not bragging, but I'm just saying that.
Yeah.
Like, so from a young age, like I would watch stand-up comics. I don't even remember how young I was, but as a kid, right? On the Late Show or on Johnny Carson, everything, the Tonight Show.
I just want to check
yeah.
our time. Sorry.
Yeah. Yep.
Although I can't. Oh no, we're almost at an hour.
Geez. Okay. Well.
Yeah.
All right. So.
So continue this thought. Then we'll do the lightning round.
Okay. All right. Oh no. Okay.
Rapid fire questions, and then we'll. So yeah.
All right. So it's just I've always loved comedy. Just come from such a different family. Just they have a different take on life, different perspectives, and also just one last thing. I tell people all the time, and I've had people comment on my lectures. They say that like my lectures are like a stand-up routine, even if I'm dealing with serious issues. I'll work in comedy in the right places. There's a certain the beats, the rhythm, and so on, the delivery. I've had people say I remind them of Louis C.K. Daniel Tosh or Tim Allen. So
Yeah, well, Jerry Corley, one of my the guy who like taught me joke writing, he's done sessions for like doctors associations in the US to help improve bedside manner, to teach them like the basis of comedy.
right. Yeah.
So I thought that was cool. Okay,
Yeah.
this is I like Barry Weiss does this, so I thought it was a good idea, so I'm stealing it, which is to do rapid fire. So it's like I've got 10 questions, quick responses, is as quick as you can.
Okay.
What's a movie that you never get tired of watching?
Star Wars.
Okay.
Original.
That's a good answer. Do you believe in aliens?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Have they visited us?
I want to say yes.
Okay. Go to comfort food.
Oof. Ice cream.
Okay. AI underrated or overrated?
Overrated.
Okay.
So far.
3 desert island items.
My PlayStation VR 2.
Okay.
That's like 3 right there, but that's okay. That's 1.
The PlayStation and the V and the headset. Yeah.
Yeah. That's 1 or that. Okay. Oh my gosh. Well, let's say a laptop
Sure.
and I don't know. My wife.
Okay. She's an item. Who do you respect? Name a person you respect.
Jeez. Oh my gosh. I'm gonna go with Joe Rogan.
Okay.
I really do. I hate to go to call back, but
Yeah. No, that's cool. What's the most adventurous thing you've ever done?
can't say.
Okay.
I mean, like literally, I cannot say. I would, yeah. But other stuff. Oh my gosh, I've done so many things. I'm trying to think which I could disclose. Oh my, like because the stuff I can is boring. Okay, let's say one of the things was partying with a bunch of pro wrestlers in Japan at 19 and pretending like while I was with them, like at a bar, met them and everything like that. I can't go into detail what we did because I'd get in trouble. But I just kind of I insinuated myself with them, and then we partied all night, and they took me in as one of the boys. So.
Prostitutes. Okay, gotcha. What's an item on your bucket list?
I did scuba diving already. You know what? I want to do. I'd love to swim with the sharks.
Me too.
Yeah.
I want to do the cage.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Oh, okay, that's cool. Finish this sentence. Lockdowns were
unnecessary, tyrannical, and a blight on society.
Last question. What advice would you give your younger self?
Don't be such an asshole. Don't be so hubristic. Listen more and have more compassion and empathy.
Okay. I think that brings us to an hour. Thanks for coming. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much. And I got to tell you, with all sincerity, being the first guest, I'm actually honored. I really do appreciate that. So thanks so much.
No, thanks for coming.